When family betrays, a brother's journey from slave labor to vengeance. I still remember the exact moment everything in my life changed. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind that tricked you into thinking nothing out of the ordinary would happen. But then she slid the folder across the kitchen table. My sister, Sophia, sat across from me, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The same smile she always wore when she knew she had the upper hand. "Time to contribute to the family, little brother," she said, her voice like ice. I glanced at the folder, a pit forming in my stomach as I reached for it. As I flipped through the papers, I could feel the weight of what was happening. It wasn't just a set of school withdrawal forms, it was my future being taken away from me. She had already signed everything using the power of attorney I had foolishly given her during a rough time when I had been hospitalized. I was 19, halfway through my second semester of college, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was on track. My grades weren't perfect, but I was getting by. I had a part-time job at the campus bookstore, I was making friends, and slowly but surely, I was figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do. After losing our parents 2 years ago, that alone felt like an achievement. But none of that mattered now. Sophia had inherited almost everything, our parents' house, their savings, and it had made her feel untouchable. She'd already set her sights on my future, and it wasn't going to include college. "You're dropping out," she said matter-of-factly. "I've already spoken to the school." I could barely breathe. "This isn't legal," I whispered, but my voice came out weak. "Too weak to matter. Drop out or I'll call the school and make it happen." "You're going to work for me at the café," she said, leaning back in her chair with an air of finality. Her café. The one she had just bought with her inheritance and the one she now expected me to run without pay. Just free labor. I could almost hear the gears of her plan turning, her smile growing colder as she spoke again, her eyes never leaving mine. "You'll be doing the family a favor. Time to pay back the years we've had to deal with you. Family disappointment." That's how she saw me. That's how she always saw me. Because I had struggled with depression after mom and dad died, because I took a gap year to get my life together, because I wasn't the golden child who always had everything figured out. But I was trying. I was trying so hard. "I can't just drop out, Sophia," I said, pushing the folder back across the table. "I have responsibilities. A job, my classes." Her laugh cut through me. "A job shelving books," she mocked, her eyes narrowing. "Let's be realistic here, Ian. You're barely passing. You have no direction. I'm offering you a future, a chance to be a part of something successful. The family business." I couldn't believe it. "It's not a family business," I shot back, "you just bought it." Her face twisted. "Well, consider this your contribution. You're going to work at my cafe. It's the least you can do." And that's when it happened. The final blow. "Actually," she said with a cold smirk, "you are dropping out. I've already taken care of it. The withdrawal papers are being processed. I've used the power of attorney from when you were sick. You won't even have a choice." The world spun. I had given her the power to make decisions for me in case things got bad. I never imagined she'd use it like this. She had already signed away my future. This was it. I was trapped. "Sophia, this isn't legal. You can't do this." She just shrugged, unconcerned. "Sue me then." "With what money?" "You've already lost your college fund and I'll be taking care of everything here, free room, free board, as long as you work at the cafe." I'm not heartless. My mind raced, trying to find any way out. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't let her do this to me. But what choice did I have? As I sat there, stunned and speechless, I knew one thing: my life had just taken a turn I couldn't come back from. It didn't take long for the weight of my new life to sink in. The cafe was a prison, my prison. I worked 12-hour shifts, day in and day out, with no pay except for a roof over my head. A roof that barely felt like mine. Sophia made sure I was always busy, always moving, always obedient. Cleaning, cooking, managing inventory, handling deliveries, there was no end to the list of tasks she assigned me. The work was never done, and neither were her insults. "You should be grateful," she would say, eyes cold, watching me mop the floor long after closing time. "Most people would kill for this chance. Free room, free board. You're learning a trade after all." A trade, right? The only thing I was really learning was how to keep my head down and stay out of her way. I wasn't allowed to think about anything else but my responsibilities here. Not my future. Not my dreams. Not the life I had been building for myself at college. All of that was gone now, replaced by the endless grind of serving Sophia's ego. And every night, as I swept the floors, scrubbed the counters, or restocked the shelves, I could feel the dream of finishing college slipping further and further away. I couldn't even remember what it felt like to be hopeful. Every corner of this cafe felt like a reminder of how trapped I was. But I wasn't going to let this be my life. I couldn't. I started doing something small, something I thought would make all the difference later on. I began documenting everything. The hours I worked, the insults she threw my way, the way she treated me like I was a burden, a mistake she had to tolerate. I kept it all in a notebook hidden under my mattress like some kind of secret rebellion. And while I worked, I thought about what Darren had said to me when I first started here. She's using you. You have to fight back somehow. Darren, the friend I'd made at the bookstore, would stop by during his breaks, buying a coffee to give me a moment of normalcy. He'd always remind me to keep track of everything, even if it felt pointless. Document it all, Ethan, he'd whisper, his voice low, looking around to make sure no one was listening. Every single thing. You don't know when you'll need it. You're smarter than this. Don't let her break you. It was his voice that kept me going on the hardest days. As the café steps mounted and Sophia's impatience grew, I knew this wasn't just about surviving, it was about outlasting her. I had to play the long game, even if I had to live this hell for a little while longer. Before I share what happened next, the moment that changed everything and set the wheels of my revenge in motion, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button because this story is just getting started. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The weight of Sophia's cruelty was starting to fuel my resolve. Every insult, every harsh word only made me stronger. She didn't know it, but with every step she took to break me, she was actually pushing me toward the moment when I would finally take control of my own life again. It was only a matter of time. 2 years. 2 years of working at Sophia's cafe, of cleaning, cooking, and dealing with her endless demands had done something to me. It wasn't just the exhaustion. It was the learning. The cafe's financial troubles weren't exactly a secret. Sophia just never paid attention to the details. I had started noticing discrepancies, little things that didn't add up, like the strange way the numbers in the ledger never seemed to match up with the amount of cash we were taking in. The cafe was bleeding money, but Sophia was too busy with her social media posts and Chamber of Commerce meetings to notice. It didn't matter to her. It mattered to me. I was starting to understand everything. How to read financial reports, how to manage inventory, how to make a business profitable. Slowly but surely, I was piecing together the knowledge I would need to make a change. A change that could save me from this never-ending nightmare. But I wasn't in a hurry. I had learned patience. Then, out of nowhere, Olivia walked into the cafe one morning. She was one of our regular customers, always ordering the same thing, a large Americano, extra hot, no room. She'd been watching me work for months, I'd noticed. Her sharp eyes never missed a detail. And one day, as I served her coffee, she looked at me like she had finally seen something important. "You're wasting your potential," she said, the words sharp but not unkind. "This place, it's not going anywhere unless someone who knows what they're doing takes charge." I was stunned. This wasn't just some casual customer. Olivia owned several successful restaurants in the city, and she had probably seen more cafes fail than I could count. The fact that she was talking to me about the cafe meant something. But what? I wasn't just the guy who worked here. I was the one who kept things running while Sophia pretended to be a businesswoman. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice betraying a mix of curiosity and disbelief. She set down her coffee cup and looked around the cafe, her gaze lingering on the worn-out furniture, the half-finished renovation projects, and the crumbling kitchen. "I've been watching you. You know how to run this place. You're doing everything, from the orders to the bookkeeping. You're keeping it together." I felt a spark inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Someone who actually understood the business, saw me for what I was. Not just a worker, but a potential operator. A future leader. It felt like a lifeline. Olivia smiled at me, then leaned in, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "I think you could do more than just this. I'll mentor you, show you how to really run a restaurant, how to turn a failing business into a thriving one. You've got the potential. You just need the right guidance." It was like a dream. A chance to finally take control of my life, to stop being the invisible cog in Sophia's little empire. But there was a catch. Sophia's grip on the cafe was slipping, and I had to be careful. Olivia had seen the signs. She told me flat out, "This business won't last unless someone who understands the numbers takes over. Your sister's in over her head, and I'm not sure how much longer it will survive." For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of purpose. It wasn't about surviving anymore. It was about thriving, about building something that was mine, not Sophia's. But I wasn't going to rush into anything. Olivia's mentorship gave me the skills I needed, but it also gave me something else: time. Time to prepare. Time to learn. Sophia didn't know it yet, but I was already planning my escape. I knew how the cafe was failing, how it was being mismanaged, and I was starting to piece together a plan. I'd been patient for 2 years, learning every little detail. Now, it was time to take what I'd learned and use it. Slowly, I began taking steps toward a future I could control, but I needed to wait for the perfect moment. Before I continue with the part that will change everything, I want to ask you, my incredible viewers, have you ever felt trapped in a situation that seemed impossible to escape? Drop a comment and tell me your story. And if you're ready to see how I finally turned the tables on Sophia, hit that like button. Trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. It all came down to this moment. After years of silent suffering, after 2 years of painstakingly documenting every hour, every insult, every manipulation, my chance had finally arrived. The owner of the building, Alice, had approached me out of the blue. She had noticed how poorly the cafe was being managed, and with her lease about to expire, she offered me the opportunity to buy the building. It was the perfect chance, a moment I had been waiting for, but never truly expecting. I didn't hesitate. I'd been secretly saving the tips Sophia didn't know about, scraping together whatever I could. With Olivia's guidance, I had learned how to manage money, how to plan for the future. I reviewed the cafe's financial records, disastrous to say the least, and saw how Sophia's reckless management had bled the business dry. I knew I could do better, and now I had the chance to prove it. I signed the papers, transferred the money, and suddenly I was the proud owner of the cafe building. But it wasn't just the building that was mine, it was everything that came with it. I had the power to make decisions. I had the power to rewrite my future. And for the first time in years, I could finally breathe freely. Sophia, on the other hand, was sinking fast. Her empire, built on lies and exploitation, was collapsing. The debts were too high, the customers were gone, and the cafe could no longer keep up with its obligations. She hadn't realized it yet, but her days of pretending to be a business mogul were over. As the cafe failed, I saw an opening. Her lease was up for renewal, and I was in a position to do something she never expected. I sent her a termination notice. When she walked into the cafe that afternoon, expecting things to go as they always had, I could feel the shift in the air. She didn't know it yet, but the power had shifted. I had control now. She came in, that same smug expression plastered on her face, as if the world still belonged to her. But I wasn't that scared kid anymore. I had a plan, and it was all coming to fruition. I stood behind the counter, calm and collected, as I handed her the letter. The letter that told her the business was no longer hers. The cafe was mine now. Sophia's eyes flicked to the paper, then back to me, confusion turning to fury. She shook the letter in my face, her voice rising in desperation. "What is this? You can't do this. You don't have the right to take everything from me." I could hear the panic in her voice, but I stayed silent, watching as the realization slowly hit her. I had all the evidence. All the records, all the notes. I had documented everything she had done to me, every insult, every forced hour of unpaid labor. And now it was all coming back to her. "Actually, I do," I said, my voice steady. "This cafe, this building, it's mine now. Your lease is up. You're done here." Her face flushed, her fists clenched. She was furious, but I didn't feel anything. No anger, no joy, just a deep sense of calm. She had made me suffer for so long, but now it was her turn to face the consequences. And I added almost casually, "Since you're so good at running things, I thought I'd offer you a position." Her brow furrowed in confusion. "A position? What are you talking about?" I smiled, knowing exactly what was coming next. "You can work here as a dishwasher. Minimum wage. No benefits. Just like you planned to do with me." For a moment, Sophia stood frozen, the words sinking in. I could see her mind racing, trying to come up with some way to save herself, but there was nothing left. Her empire had crumbled, and all that was left was her humiliation. She laughed, but it was hollow. "You think you've won, don't you? You think this is the end of it? You think you can just throw me away?" I looked her square in the eye. "No. I didn't throw you away. I gave you exactly what you gave me. Just a little taste of what it feels like to be nothing. To be controlled. To be discarded." And then I handed her the last document. The one that sealed everything. A termination letter, her termination as a tenant. It was over. Everything she had done to me, every moment of cruelty, every manipulation, it had all led to this. She stared at the paper in disbelief, her fingers trembling as she read the words. "You didn't, you wouldn't." "I would," I said calmly. "And I did." She stood there for a moment, silent, and then, in one last act of defiance, she turned to leave. But before she walked out the door, I called after her. "Oh, and one more thing," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "If you want to apply for that dishwasher job, you can. Just fill out the application online. We'll get back to you in 5 to 7 business days." Her face twisted, a mix of rage and disbelief. You can't do this to me. I'm your sister. You should have thought about that before you made me your slave, I replied, watching her walk out. As the door slammed behind her, I felt nothing. No joy. No bitterness. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that for once I was in control. I had taken back my life and my power. And the café? It was going to thrive. Not because of Sophia's greed, but because of everything I had learned along the way. Every moment of suffering, every insult, every hour spent working without pay had led me here. To the sweet taste of revenge and the knowledge that I was finally free. Before I wrap up this chapter, one that I know will leave you in awe, tell me, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to overcome? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you've ever fought for your freedom. Trust me, the next chapter will blow your mind. You won't want to miss it.